Hello, welcome to Garden Chronicles. Thank you so much for visiting. Today I'm actually talking about Huperzia species, and basically this is my cascading collection where I like my plants cascading downwards, especially the foliage and the leaf structure, where when I look at him it's like more like falling down and cascading, and I like that kind of a curtain effect where it gives me privacy and also a kind of a feel of exclusiveness in my garden. And this is the effect of all the plants that I actually grow. And today I'm just going to talk about this particular species, the Huperzia species. Basically I actually have four species here, and I'm just going to talk a little bit of how to care for them and how do I take care of all these particular types. This one actually is my first collection, and I would say that this is one of the most easiest to work with, and I would always recommend this for a beginner before they go to the more difficult type. This one actually, when I purchased it, it was actually tied in a wire netting, and it was actually hang upside down. Of course, most people take that for granted, and they will just hang it on the tree, and eventually it will just die away. So what I want to give to you is some of the tips of how to actually care for them and to make sure to keep them for years. This one I think practically with me almost about 5 years plus in my hand, and they tend to grow bigger. Okay, now I want to talk about the medium that I use. I actually use cocoa chips. Basically what I do here is that I actually collect all the coconut husk and I actually trim them down by myself. Eventually what has happened here is that they do tend to rot and disintegrate, so it is important to make sure that they are more chunky rather than becoming fibrous. Sometimes some people actually use a coconut husk. Actually I would not recommend that because it will actually cause root rot. The other factor here is that always check the leaf structure before purchasing them, because it has to be fresh, and if you look at it, it's supposed to be very springy kind of thing. So anything lesser than that, the plant is actually dying. So be very cautious when you buy this, because they are very sensitive plant. If you look over here, is actually I've started a new colony over here, which is actually sprouted from here. When they tend to become very brushy like this, there's a lot of leaves. What I do is I just put it into this collection just below it, and eventually they will take root and they will start a new set altogether. Watering is important, not to over water it. The other factor I want to show to you here is that at the bottom of this particular pot, way back then I actually cut the hole and place them upside down. What has happened here is that the root balls, even in the beginning it was okay, but eventually the root ball started to get choked, and they tend to die away, and there's no new roots coming out from here. So always keep an eye on the crown root ball, because that's where all the new shoots comes out from there. If there is no new shoot coming out, chances are the plant is choking or something is wrong. So do check on it time to time to make sure there's no rot or no dry. The other factor here is the fertilizer that I use. One of the most important thing that I actually use is Osmocote. I find that nothing else works best except for Osmocote. Of course, you can actually use rice washed water or some organic form, but I find that sometimes organic fertilizer can be very strong and can actually burn the plant. So I find the best so far is Osmocote, and basically I actually use a very small amount for about 2 or 3 weeks, just about 3 or 4 pieces of it, just to add on slowly. Too much fertilizer can actually burn the plant, and they can be easily stressed. So do keep an eye on these factors before growing them. The other factor I want to talk about here is this main branch. They do tend to become heavy, and they can easily snap out of the root structure. So make sure that there is enough support that they actually rest on something before they cascade down. Some of them are actually strong, but in most cases they can snap out of weight. So do keep that in mind. Talking about another species here, locally this one is known as Sisi Naga. I will actually put in the names on the list here. One of the things about this particular one is when I purchased it, this is my secondary one, which I find that is the next easier plant to have. Once you purchase it, you will actually find that some of the leaf tend to dry or sort of like slowly withering away kind of thing. Don't trim them yet. Leave them be in the plant, because the more you trim, they tend to get more stress and all of it may turn to be brown. So the most important thing here is just leave them be. Earlier, as I said earlier, that this particular one that I've been keeping it for years, I have actually placed it downwards. What has happened here is that they has become choked and become very stressful, so I've replanted it from the top bottom. So when I did that, this starting to appear and slowly they are regenerating back. uh, One of the common mistakes that done is that some people think that there's not enough water and tend to overwater it. This is the danger signs that not to be done. They need to be moist but not too wet. So just leave them be, and eventually new leaves will come. uh, as you can see that I'm actually tempted to trim them off, but I will have to let it go for 2 to 3 weeks until they totally wither away. Sometimes the dry leaf might fall out and the newer ones can come out. So patience is the key on this. The other one that I want to actually show to you is this particular one. It's a squarrosa. This particular one also is a little bit more sensitive than the rest, so do handle this one with care, and very importantly, hand okay, the other thing I want to explain to you here is this. Do you see this particular thing, and it's sort of like a sprout coming from there? This is a new plant altogether. So what can be done here is that I can actually roll a small ball of sphagnum moss around it, and they will actually take root. Or I can place it on top of another hanging pot and they will start a new colony on that. But let's say we don't want to do so or anything like that, eventually that will actually sprout out to become a two new sprout leaf, but there will not be a root ball from there. So these particular plants are actually very versatile and actually hardy, but proper care and maintenance is required, or else they can die easily if you are new to it. One of the factors here is that this is also, I have recently repotted them. Some of them are doing well, the new sprouts of it, but some of them do show sign of stress. Now if you look at this portion of it, all of it looks green and nice, but one or two parts of it is actually burnt. So one of the things I need to do is that vigilant and taking care of it properly does pay a good portion of it to take care of it. If you see that this part of it, this particular portion of the leaf, they actually burnt. So I'm actually tempted to trim them off, but what happened is, once if I trim over here this corner, the drying effect will take all the way up. So the best thing to do is not to do anything, just leave them be. Eventually the plant will find itself and it will bounce back to health. The factor here is that not to over fertilize or overwater. You keep them in a semi bright place, not too direct sun, just in a half portion of it. Okay, this particular one is the most difficult one to take care, and it's considered somehow rare. It's not easy to be found. Locally it's known as tali kasut, meaning shoelace Huperzia, but basically this is one difficult plant. I actually bought this from online, a small shrub, small root ball, which is not so expensive, but once I placed them there, half of it actually burnt and fell off, but the newer ones are actually coming. As I mentioned earlier, I made a mistake where I hanged it upside down. So what has happened here is that there was only one sprout that was coming from the top, and all the way it went down. So what has happened here is that as it grew, it all sprouts out, but it's just one plant. And what happened is that that piece started to rot and fell away, and that's about it. I lost the whole plant. So do pay attention, close attention on the crown and the root ball, because if there's no new growth and if you don't find any new roots coming, you actually lost the plant. Okay, this one is actually I found from a nursery nearby my place, and I'm actually checking and looking and studying on how this particular plant is actually faring in a different condition. What I noticed here is that they actually kept it cascading and tied it against a branch, and actually if you look at it, it's actually tied on a raffia string, and the whole thing is actually a root ball. I believe they're actually using a foliar fertilizer at it, and I'm amazed at how this particular plant is more behaving like a succulent rather than a fern. If you notice the whole root ball, they're actually very dry, and there is no visibility of it being moist or wet. And if you can look at it, all the new sprouts actually look very healthy. I believe they water them very strongly towards the daytime, and they eventually dry off within few hours, and so far the plant is actually doing so well. Similarly, this particular one, I noticed that if you look at it, the whole piece is actually its root ball, and this is cascading downward. One of the risk factor that I actually found that once they change to a different location and different condition, they tend to become stressed and they will drop off most of the leaves. So ideally having a non-stress chemical use against them to make sure that they don't get stressed out. If I'm not wrong, something called vitamin B1 actually helps to keep them from becoming stressed out. If you notice that this is quite actually a very healthy plant, most of the sprouts are looking very good. Similarly, this particular one I noticed also look very springy, something like fir kind of pine leaf kind of structure, very firm and strong and dry. I noticed that they keep it in a semi-bright place, and the medium is similar. When I look at it, these particular leaves, they are very strong and hardy. The medium here is cocoa peat and fern bark, if I notice it, and they are quite dry. I notice it's not wet. So I realized that overwatering can actually damage them. So keeping them just adequately moist is one of the most important thing. Anyway, this is the one that I actually want to show to you. This particular species is not in my hands to take care. I just want to add it into this video to have a collection of all the Huperzia I actually come across. Thank you so much for visiting my garden and coming and checking through this particular video. I would really like to hear your comments below, and if you can, please do hit like, and all more if you can do subscribe and support me in this channel, I will do so, and hear from you soon. Have a nice and lovely day, and happy gardening.